"You're joking, right?" That's all I could say when she threw her head back and laughed, announcing she was going on a date as if she'd just said something cute about ordering dessert. My fork was still hovering over my plate. The steak I'd spent an hour cooking was cooling, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. Her laughter didn't stop. It grew louder, sharper, like it was bouncing off every wall in the house just to stab me a little deeper. She stood up, still smirking, and grabbed her jacket like she was about to prove the joke was real. I didn't yell. I didn't even ask why. Instead, I whispered something I didn't plan, something that slid out of me like a blade. "Enjoy your date." He already texted me back. The sound of her breath catching, that sharp inhale, was like the house itself stopped breathing. She froze halfway to the door. Her hand, still gripping the jacket, trembled. I watched the color drain from her face, and for a moment, she wasn't the woman I married. She looked cornered. She turned, her smile now replaced with this twitch, like she was trying to figure out if I was bluffing. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice cracking just slightly. I didn't answer. I just leaned back in my chair, letting the silence chew through her nerves. I had no proof, nothing but an aching gut feeling and too many sleepless nights. But in that silence, I could see it in her eyes. Guilt. Raw, unfiltered guilt. For a few seconds, I thought she might confess right there. Instead, she dropped her jacket on the floor and muttered something about me being insane. She tried to laugh again, but the sound was hollow now. I let her walk away, but in my head, the wheels were already turning. If she thought I was bluffing, I'd make sure I wasn't. I waited until I heard the bathroom door lock upstairs. Then I picked up her phone from the kitchen counter. She never left it unattended. Never. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding so loud, I was sure she could hear it through the walls. And that's when I saw the first name that made my blood run cold. Her phone felt heavier in my hands than it should have, like it already knew it was carrying the kind of truth that could snap a person in half. I hesitated for a moment, staring at the lock screen, my reflection faintly visible in the black glass. I'd never crossed this line before. I always told myself trust was sacred, even when I started feeling like she was slipping through my fingers. But something in me, maybe that single laugh, maybe the way she tossed "I'm going on a date" like it was nothing, snapped all those rules. To my surprise, the phone was unlocked. Maybe she was too confident, or maybe she thought I was too weak to ever look. As soon as the screen lit up, my heart sank. Right at the top of her messages was a name I didn't recognize, Cameron R. It wasn't one of her friends, I was sure of that. My wife, the woman who'd once laughed at how ridiculous secret affairs in movies seemed, had a whole thread with someone who texted things like, "Last night was impossible to forget. You taste like fire." I swear my throat closed. I read the line over and over again, each time feeling a little more hollow. Then I scrolled further, even though every cell in my body screamed at me to stop. Messages about sneaking out. About how I was clueless. About meeting in places that weren't just restaurants. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, my vision blurring. I wanted to smash the phone, to scream until the walls cracked. But instead, I just sat there like an idiot, letting my dinner go cold. I don't even remember hearing her footsteps on the stairs, but suddenly she was standing in the doorway. I didn't hide the phone. I just looked at her, holding it like a weapon I didn't know how to use. For a second, she didn't move. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then she said, "Give that back," her voice low, almost trembling. I didn't move. "Who's Cameron?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was quieter, but sharper. She froze like she'd been caught under a spotlight. I could see her mind scrambling, every excuse fighting to come out. Finally, she laughed again, but this time, it was a broken laugh, the kind someone makes when they realize the game is over. "You're reading it wrong," she muttered, taking a step toward me. But she didn't reach for the phone. I think she knew that if she touched me right then, I'd lose it. "You told me you were going on a date like it was a joke," I said, still staring at her. "But now I think you weren't joking at all." She swallowed hard and looked away, her fingers twisting together like she was trying to hold herself from falling apart. In that moment, I realized something that hurt even more than the texts. She wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of what I'd do with the truth. That's when I decided I wasn't going to confront her the usual way. No yelling, no begging, no crying. I was going to let her bury herself in her own lies, while I uncovered every single thing she thought she'd hidden. And I knew exactly where to start. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed next to her, pretending to be half asleep while my mind was chewing itself alive. Every little sound she made, every breath felt like a dagger. She didn't say a word to me. No explanation, no apology, nothing. Just scrolled through her phone for an hour, occasionally sighing like I was the problem, then turned her back to me. It was the longest night of my life. By morning, I knew I couldn't stay passive. I needed to know everything. Not just the texts, not just the vague hints. I wanted the entire ugly truth, the kind that leaves no room for doubt. I wasn't going to ask her anymore because she'd just lie. Claire had always been good with words, the kind of person who could make you feel guilty for something you didn't even do. So I decided to start somewhere she couldn't manipulate, her car. While she was in the shower, I grabbed her keys and went out to the driveway. I don't know what I expected. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But as soon as I opened the glove compartment, my stomach twisted. There was a receipt from a hotel bar, dated just 3 nights ago. 2 drinks, some overpriced appetizer, and a timestamp at 11:48 p.m. I was home that night. She'd told me she was at a late yoga class. The name of the hotel wasn't even somewhere we'd ever been. For a few seconds, I just sat there in the driver's seat, staring at the paper like it was a piece of evidence in a trial I didn't know I was part of. My hands were shaking. I imagined her with someone else, laughing the way she used to laugh with me, maybe leaning closer, maybe. I couldn't even finish the thought. It felt like the walls of my chest were caving in. But then I noticed something even stranger. In the side pocket of the passenger door, there was a folded note. My first thought was that it was just some trash, but when I opened it, I froze. It wasn't written by her. It was someone else's handwriting, messy but deliberate. Next time, don't park so close. You're making it obvious. I swear I nearly dropped the note. My whole body went cold. What was this? Was she meeting someone so often that even strangers were noticing? Or worse, was this some twisted game she was playing, careless enough to not even hide the signs? I shoved the note back and pocketed the receipt. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might throw up. I had 1,000 questions, and not a single answer. When I walked back inside, she was already in the kitchen, casually sipping coffee like she wasn't living a double life. She smiled at me, the same smile that used to make me feel like the luckiest man alive. And all I could think was, who are you really? I didn't say a word about the receipt or the note, not yet. Because if she thought I was clueless, I wanted to keep it that way. I wanted her to get comfortable, to think she was still in control. Meanwhile, I'd be digging, peeling back every layer until I knew the entire rotten truth. What I didn't know then was that the next clue I'd find would make the hotel receipt look like a harmless misunderstanding, and once I saw it, there'd be no turning back. I kept quiet about what I'd found in her car. Every time I looked at her, I could feel the questions boiling inside me, but I bit them back. I knew if I confronted her now, I'd get nothing but lies. Claire had this way of twisting words, of making me feel like I was crazy for even doubting her. No, I needed something undeniable, something she couldn't laugh off or spin in her favor. I didn't have to wait long, because 2 days later, fate handed me something I never could have prepared for. It happened while I was at work. My phone buzzed with a notification that I had a new voicemail on our home landline. We barely use that line anymore. It was mostly for junk calls. But this one was different. It was from an unknown number. I don't know why, but I felt this chill in my chest before I even hit play. And then I heard it. A man's voice, calm, low, and confident. Hey, it's me. Don't forget to bring that black dress tonight, and don't answer if he calls. I'll see you at the usual spot. Same time. I swear I stopped breathing. My whole office seemed to fade away, like I was listening underwater. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped my phone. He didn't say her name, but I didn't need him to. Who else could he mean? It wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. The don't answer if he calls part was a knife right to my gut. He was talking about me, wasn't he? I listened to that message over and over, every word slicing me open a little more. By the 5th replay, I was gripping my desk so hard my knuckles were white. I wanted to storm home, throw the phone at her, and scream, "Who the hell is this?" But I stopped myself. That would just give her time to cover her tracks, to delete things, to erase the truth I was so close to. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to my email and sat there, shaking with this bizarre mix of anger and fear. What kind of person was I married to? How long had she been laughing behind my back? And who was this man who sounded so comfortable, like this wasn't some wild affair, but something planned and practiced? That night, I barely looked at her. I pretended to be exhausted from work, but really, I was watching her every move. She seemed nervous. She kept checking her phone, like she was waiting for something. I saw her glance at the clock twice in 1 minute, her knee bouncing under the table. It was like she wanted to leave, but couldn't find an excuse. When she finally got up and said she was going for a drive to clear her head, I knew it was a lie. I waited 5 minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and followed her. I didn't even know where I was going, but my hands were on the wheel before my brain caught up. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And that's when I saw it. Her car parked outside a place I'd never seen before. Not a restaurant, not a friend's house. A dim, shabby-looking building on the edge of town. The kind of place you'd never stop at unless you had a secret to keep. I parked far enough away so she wouldn't notice me. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my breath fogging the windows. And all I could think was, what is she doing in there? I told myself I'd wait 10 minutes just to see if anyone came out. But those 10 minutes would turn into something I never expected, because I wasn't the only one watching that building that night. I was parked across the street from that strange building, my hands still trembling on the steering wheel, when I noticed it, another car, tucked into the shadows about 30 feet behind me. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then I saw the faint glow of a cigarette ember, someone exhaling smoke through a slightly cracked window. They weren't there by accident. They were watching the building too. I tried not to stare, but my mind was racing. Who the hell was this? Was it him? The man from the voicemail? Was I about to catch them together? I wanted to storm across the street, pound on the car window, and demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear, maybe curiosity, but I stayed put, watching the watcher. After a few minutes, the other car door opened and a man stepped out. He wasn't who I expected. He looked rough, mid-40s, wearing a battered leather jacket, the kind of guy who seemed too used to being awake at 2 a.m. He didn't look like the kind of man my wife would sneak around with, but the way he leaned against his car, staring at that building, told me he was involved somehow. I cracked my window just enough to hear, and that's when my stomach dropped. He was talking on the phone. "Yeah, she's here," he muttered, his voice low and gravelly. "Don't worry, I'll keep an eye out. He won't find out, not yet." He won't find out. Those words hit me like a hammer. Was he talking about me? I sank lower in my seat, my mind spinning out of control. This wasn't just about an affair. This was something bigger, something darker. Who was this guy? And why was he tracking my wife's every move? My gut told me to leave, to drive away before I learned something I couldn't unlearn, but I couldn't. I stayed, my pulse thundering in my ears until I saw her walk out of the building. Claire wasn't alone. There was a man with her, tall, dressed in black. He wasn't touching her, but the way they moved, close, deliberate, like they'd done this before, made my chest tighten. I could see her smiling, that same fake smile she used on me when she wanted me to stop asking questions. They spoke briefly by her car, and then she handed him something, a small envelope. I squinted, trying to see, but I was too far away. Before I could think, the guy in the leather jacket started moving toward them. Not fast, but like he was about to intercept. That's when I realized this was about to get messy, and I wasn't ready for whatever was coming next. I ducked down, watching through the gap between my steering wheel and dashboard as the man in black noticed the other guy approaching. He froze, his whole posture shifting, and for a second, I thought I was about to witness something violent. Claire glanced nervously between them, like she knew something I didn't, and then, just like that, the guy in black turned and walked away, disappearing into the night like a ghost. She got into her car, but she didn't drive off immediately. She sat there, gripping the wheel, staring at the man in the leather jacket. They exchanged some kind of look, not fear, but recognition. Like they both understood a game was being played, and I was the idiot on the outside of it. I waited until she drove off, my hands so sweaty I could barely grip the wheel. I didn't follow her home. Instead, I drove aimlessly for an hour, trying to process what I'd seen. Who were these people? What was in that envelope? And why did it feel like I had just stepped into someone else's nightmare? When I finally walked through the door, she was already there, curled up on the couch like nothing had happened. "You're late," she said casually, without even looking at me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her where she had been and why she was lying to me. But instead, I just said, "Yeah, long day," and went upstairs. Because now, I wasn't just suspicious. I was terrified. The image of that man in the leather jacket wouldn't leave my mind. It haunted me the entire night. even as I pretended to sleep next to Claire, who lay there scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing in the dark, talking on his phone about keeping an eye on her, about me not finding out. I had no idea who he was, but the way he looked at Claire, like he knew her secrets better than I did, made my blood run cold. The next morning, I decided to do something I've never done before. I skipped work, telling my boss I was sick, and instead drove back to that building where I'd seen Claire the night before. It was empty now, just a dull, abandoned-looking place with broken blinds in the windows, and a faded sign that didn't even reveal what kind of business it was. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of something I didn't fully understand. I was about to leave when I spotted something on the ground near where that man had been parked, a cigarette butt. Normally, I wouldn't care, but this one was still fresh, still smelling like it had been smoked less than 24 hours ago. I don't know why, but I took it as a clue, like some bizarre trophy of the moment I'd nearly confronted him. Then, as I circled around the building, I noticed something else. A camera. A small security camera tucked under the eave above the side entrance, angled just slightly toward the street. My heart started pounding. That camera would have caught everything last night. Claire, the man in black, even the guy in the leather jacket. I walked around to the front door, trying the handle, but it was locked. I knocked, pretending I had some reason to be there. No answer. The place looked dead. But just as I turned to leave, a voice startled me. "You shouldn't be here," a man said from behind me. It wasn't the man in the leather jacket, but for a split second I thought it might be. This guy was younger, maybe early 30s, wearing a cheap polo and jeans, holding a bag of groceries. He stared at me like he already knew I didn't belong. "Looking for someone?" he asked. I stammered, completely unprepared. I thought this place was for rent." He gave me this strange look, like I'd just told the worst lie of my life. "It's not. You should go," he said again. But there was something in his tone, not anger, but almost pity, like he knew something I didn't. I left, but I didn't go home. Instead, I drove around aimlessly for hours, thinking about that camera. If I could get my hands on that footage, maybe I'd finally see what was going on. But how was I supposed to do that? By the time I got home, Claire was already there, humming softly as she made dinner. She looked happy. Happier than I'd seen her in weeks, and that scared me even more. I sat at the table, watching her, and I realized something that made my skin crawl. She wasn't just lying to me. She was living a whole other life, one I wasn't supposed to know about. That night, I got an idea. I pulled out the voicemail I'd saved from the unknown man and played it again, listening closely. There was a faint sound in the background, a noise I hadn't noticed before. It was music, soft and muffled, like it was playing in a bar that might just be near that mysterious building. And that's when I made a decision I knew could change everything. I was going to find the man in the leather jacket, not just watch from the shadows this time, but confront him, face to face, and demand to know what the hell was happening. The only problem? He was already looking for me first. I didn't have to look for him for long. The very next day, just as I was leaving the grocery store, I felt it, that prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. I turned, and there he was, leaning against a black sedan parked a few spaces away. The same leather jacket, the same detached, assessing stare. It was like he'd been waiting for me. "You're Leonard, right?" His voice was exactly as I remembered, low, rough, like gravel rolling over steel. I froze, groceries dangling from my hand, unsure whether to answer. How did he know my name? I hadn't told anyone about what I'd seen, not even my closest friend. "Who the hell are you?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He smiled faintly, but there was nothing friendly about it. "Let's not do this here. Too many eyes." He motioned for me to follow him, then casually walked toward the far corner of the parking lot, like this was all completely normal. Against my better judgment, I followed. Maybe I just wanted answers more than I cared about my own safety at that moment. When we reached the far end, hidden between two delivery trucks, he finally turned to face me. "You think your wife is just cheating on you?" he asked, his tone mocking. "You think this is about some guy she's texting?" I clenched my fists, my heart pounding so hard I could barely think. "What do you know about Claire?" I demanded. He chuckled, shaking his head. "More than you ever will if you keep pretending you're just the clueless husband. She's not who you think she is, not even close." I felt my breath catch. The way he said it, calm, assured, sent chills through me. "What are you talking about? Stop with the riddles and just tell me what the hell is going on." The man's face hardened, and for a moment, I saw something cold and dangerous in his eyes. "She's been in this a long time, Leonard. Longer than you've been married. You really think those late-night drives are about meeting some guy? Number, she's delivering things you don't want to know about. Delivering things?" My mind scrambled to make sense of it. Drugs, money. What the hell was he implying? "She's not cheating on you," he continued, "but what she's doing is worse. If you were smart, you'd get as far away from her as you can before this blows up." I wanted to laugh in his face, tell him he was insane, but deep down, his words made a terrifying kind of sense. The envelope she gave to that man, the mysterious building, the voicemail. It all connected in ways I didn't want to believe. "What's in it for you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to keep this clean," he said simply. "But if she keeps dragging you into this, you're going to get burned, and I don't want that on me." He stepped closer, so close I could smell the smoke on his jacket. "Watch her phone. Watch where she goes. You'll see I'm not lying." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, shaking, my groceries forgotten at my feet. I wanted to run after him, demand more answers, but something told me I'd just heard as much as I could handle for now. When I got home, Claire was there, waiting. She looked at me with that same effortless smile, like nothing in the world was wrong. She even kissed my cheek and asked about my day. For the first time in years, I pulled away from her touch. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up, replaying every word that man said, every moment of the past few weeks. I realized something terrifying. I didn't really know my wife, not at all, and I had to find out exactly what kind of life she was living before it destroyed mine. What I didn't know was that the very next day I'd find something on her phone, not a text or an email, but a video that would make everything click, and it would make me wish I'd never gone digging at all. The next morning, I felt like I was moving through someone else's life. Claire acted normal, humming while she made coffee, chatting about groceries and weekend plans. But all I could hear were the words of the man in the leather jacket. I waited until she left for her morning run, which I was sure was just another excuse, and then I went through her phone again. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to keep looking. That's when I found it. Not in her messages, not in her emails, but in a hidden folder in her videos. There was one file, only 10 seconds long. I pressed play, and what I saw made my chest tighten. Claire was there, in that same dim building I'd seen before, but she wasn't with another man. She was speaking quietly into a camera, her voice trembling. "Leonard can never know." "Not yet. It's too dangerous." For a second, I didn't understand, but then I noticed the logo on the wall behind her, a charity logo, one I vaguely remembered from a news story about women helping victims of trafficking and abuse. I rewatched the clip 3 times, and the pieces started falling into place. The envelopes, the late-night drives, the secrecy. She wasn't cheating, she was helping. I felt a mix of relief and shame crash over me like a wave. I'd spent weeks thinking she was betraying me, when in reality, she was risking herself for something bigger than both of us. That man in the leather jacket, he wasn't her lover. He was protecting her, making sure she didn't get caught in the crossfire of whatever she was involved in. When she came home, I was waiting for her. My voice cracked when I said, "Claire, I know." Her eyes went wide, and for a moment, I thought she might lie again. But then she sat down, her shoulders slumping, and whispered, "I didn't want you to get involved. It's complicated, dangerous." But I couldn't stand by and watch those women suffer. She told me everything. How she had started volunteering in secret for a local network that helps women escape violent situations. How she'd promised not to tell anyone, not even me, because their safety depended on total secrecy. The man in the leather jacket, he was part of their security team, watching out for her because sometimes the people they were hiding from were ruthless. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All the paranoia, the pain, the sleepless nights, it all melted into something I couldn't describe. I felt proud of her. Proud and small, like I'd been so wrapped up in my own insecurities that I'd turned her bravery into betrayal in my head. "I thought I was losing you," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She smiled softly, reached across the table, and took my hand. "You'll never lose me, Leonard. I was just trying to protect you." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. We stayed up talking until the early hours about everything. Our fears, our dreams, the parts of our lives we'd stopped sharing. And in a strange way, all of this chaos brought us closer. Now, when I think back to that moment when she said she was going on a date, I almost laugh. Not because it was funny, but because I see how far we've come since that night. We're stronger now, honest. And I know this for sure. My wife isn't just the woman I love. She's the bravest person I know.